Hello and welcome to Dear Comms, the coffee break podcast where we tackle your biggest corporate comms challenges. I'm Imogen.
And I'm Amanda. We're here to give you practical, no-nonsense advice so you can focus on the things that will really drive influence, engagement and impact.
So this is our last episode in the series on storytelling, and we thought we'd do a little bit of a Dear Comms version of Spotify Wrapped. So all the best bits, one simple episode.
I like it. Let's be honest, with storytelling, most people open a Word document up, start typing. Do you know what? Resist the urge. Close the tab. Let's start storytelling, not hitting the keyboard, but starting with your audience. Who are they? What are they wrestling with? What do they value, fear, want, or need to achieve? If you skip this bit, you're not writing a story, you're just broadcasting into the void. And I think a few minutes of real audience insight up front can save hours of second guessing later. It'll also help you rewriting that fifth draft, which is inevitable if you just fly into it.
Yeah, I think, there's that old saying, which I can't actually remember, but something about the facts of, if you're talking to everyone, you're actually talking to nobody. And I think understanding more about your audience and getting that data is actually going to help your leaders as well. We know that leaders are reticent about storytelling, but if you can give them audience insights, then storytelling is going to feel a lot more data-driven and so grounded in reality, which we know leaders like. And it's not going to seem like that kind of fluffy comms beanbag kind of stuff.
Where did the beanbag come in?
Well, it's like marketing is all about beanbags and
pool tables
funny hats
and creativity,
funny hats and things.
Okey-doke.
That's what fluffy stuff. So once we know that audience, we then need to think about what are we trying to do. And I don't want us to be teaching people to suck eggs, because this is really the fundamental of all communications, like who you're talking to, what do you want them to do. But with storytelling, it's super important. So are you looking to inspire them, clarify something, calm down the masses, correct information, motivate them? What you want to do with your story is going to make an impact on how you tell that story and the narrative pattern that you end up choosing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know where you want to go, how are you going to figure out what's going to help your audience get there?
I agree. This is the part where you absolutely need to be crystal clear. Storytelling should be purposeful. And if your story doesn't connect to an objective, it's puff and fluff, as you've said before. Your leaders do need to understand it's a tool for performance. It's not a nice to have. I would stress, keep your structure simple and easy to read. Don't overcomplicate things. You remember, you're not writing Lord of the Rings or War and Peace. In an earlier episode, we talked about a reliable format, and that's start with the situation, name the villain, introduce the vision or quest, bring in a magic weapon and back it up with evidence, and then end with what's next. But I think for me, keep it grounded and keep it useful.
Yeah, I think if your story needs a family tree at the beginning of it, then it's probably too long and too much. Simplicity means that people can understand quickly, which is fundamental, and then they can connect and engage with what you're trying to get across. It's really easy, or if you've got a simple story, it's easier for your leaders to understand, connect, and engage as well.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one for me, and the thing that possibly will be on my gravestone is you are not the hero of your own story. You, your company, your products, your strategy, not the hero. You are the guide. Your hero is your audience, or someone that your audience can connect with.
Yeah.
They're the one who's like going on that journey. They're the one who has to win, who has to overcome. And the moment your audience stops seeing themselves in the story, then the story's over.
Yeah. I think in my experience, I don't think I know, leaders respond really well to that. It's very rare that they want to be a self-promoter. It's
Yeah, that depends.
well,
Depends on the leader,
yes,
Amanda.
Yeah, I think in general, it's much
Right.
more compelling or easier to be a mentor, the coach, the guide, the Obi-Wan Kenobi to their Luke. For me, the other thing that stands out is not forgetting your villain. And we're not talking about a competitor, but we're talking about tension in your story. So the villain might be complexity, status quo, old systems, or fear of change even. Without that friction, there isn't really a reason to listen.
I think leaders intrinsically actually understand this, that they are, in order to get their employee base to act or to do something different or to move in a certain direction, that they need to find that common ground, that common enemy. So something that everyone cares about enough and everyone agrees needs to be overcome or defeated. So figure out who that villain might be and make sure that it's a villain that actually everybody does care about.
Yeah.
And it's not just a villain that your leadership cares about. Coming up after this is we talk about evidence. We talk about it in our narrative arc. It's super important to have evidence to back up what you're saying, not only because there will probably be a healthy degree of cynicism in your audience, so why should we believe you? But if you're not backing up your story with data, testimonials, pilots, human stories, you're just kind of telling people stuff and hoping that they're going to believe you.
Yeah.
Your leaders will love this idea of evidence because leaders, generally speaking, love a bit of numbers and a bit of data.
Yeah, and you've got to make those numbers meaningful. I think too often I read stories where I get to the end and I think, so what? And that's because there's no hook for the reader, no clear benefit. Generally, people don't care about your initiative, but they care about how it changes their reality, their impact on them. Mm-hmm. Will it save them time? Will it help them make better decisions? Will it remove that friction we talked about earlier from their day? Spell it out, make it tangible. That's how you stop people nodding politely and you get them to lean in a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something advertising industry's been doing for years, right? They're not selling you a car specifically. They're selling you how you will feel in that car, how people are going to look at you in that car. They're talking about a car that makes your life easier, faster, sexier, whatever it is. So we're trying to sell through stories too. It might be a strategy, but we have to link back to that what's in it for me. Otherwise, you are going to get that polite nodding.
Yeah.
You can't bore people into caring about your communication. Although many people do try. We need to use the right story for the right job. So we're going to go back to my mate Denning. I think I should get commission from this guy, seriously. But so we're going to go back to Denning. And in one of our previous episodes, we looked at story patterns and linking them to what we want to achieve. We need to help our leadership see that storytelling is part of a strategic toolkit. It's not just, as we were saying, fluff and nonsense and we want to spread our creative wings. It is about a tool that you use in order to progress your strategy. And if they can see how it fits into those bigger business objectives, they may be more inclined to take storytelling on.
Yeah, I agree. And when they push back, and some will, bring in the science, because science it disarms skepticism every time. Storytelling lights up the brain in ways data never will. It activates oxytocin, which is the hormone that builds trust. Dopamine comes along in behind it. That drives habit and action. And then we have that tricky hormone cortisol. In this instance, it sharpens focus. So storytelling isn't as soft as your leaders might think. It is biological and it is built into our DNA.
It's something we've done since humans existed. So Let's continue doing it because we know it works.
It works, yeah.
I think finally, we talked about simplicity, we've talked about understanding audience, understanding objectives, but we need to make our stories shareable and repeatable. If people can't sum up your story, it's too complex. And that goes back to what we were saying about a lack of family tree needed. But, if they can't sum it up, too complex. If they can't find it, so they don't know where that story sits, then it's not going to go anywhere. And if it's not traveling, if it's not being repeated, if people aren't sharing it, they're not finding it, then ultimately that story doesn't matter at all. You need to get your organization aligned. And the way in which you do that is by telling the story and then getting your audience to understand, connect, and repeat that story.
Leaders love that stuff. Yeah. And remember, your job isn't to sound clever. Your job is to help the audience feel capable, connected, and clear on what comes next. If your story doesn't that, you've done your job.
A good story isn't sort of decoration, it's direction.
Yeah, 100% agree. Stories don't just describe change, they create it.
And I think on that note, that's probably a good place to wrap up the episode. If this series on storytelling has left you enthused, confused, or somewhere in the middle, and if you want some support from real humans, not AI chatbots, although I am considering making myself a little AI avatar, just to get, the boring stuff done. But if you would like some support from real humans, do get in touch. You can find out how on our website. But until next time.
Bye for now.
Bye.